Thank you very much, Antonella. Thanks, everybody. Welcome, everybody. It's great to hear that so many of you are there. And thanks to the panelists. You said it. CECP and CERES, in a way, have the same goal, and we work together. So I want to remark the importance of collaboration, which is something that it's so important these days, and all of us talk about it. And we both belong, and in fact, I would say that you, CECP, are the locomotive of this, to global exchange, a big move, international big move, driving long-term business success through positive social impact. So first of all, let me say hello to Daryl. Daryl, hey, it's great to have you here today.
Great. Thank you, Paco. And buenos tardes y gracias por esta gran invitación. While we are separated by many miles during this virtual event, we are really connected together in the belief that the world's leading companies, and so many of those are in Spain, can and should be a force for good in society. And our two organizations, as you mentioned, have such similar goals. We're founded around the same time, believe in metrics, believe in engaging the capital markets to truly work together to build a better world through business. So thank you so much. And next year, we'll be back in Madrid.
Thanks to you, Daryl. And I have to say, the only mistake we've made today is that this conversation should have happened in Spanish. I've seen your Spanish, it's excellent. So, well, we are missing this opportunity, right? So let's stay in English. Yeah, you know, Antonella said, CERES started 11 years ago, and the world in this respect was very different. We have seen a big contextual change. I would say today, there's a culture of purpose. Today, everybody talks about purpose. It's famous, Larry Fink's, a sense of purpose, the letter, all those things, right? I would say the difference is that we work on that purpose every day and night, all the days of the year, right? And we have been doing so for many, many years. What CERES is, Antonella described it, 150 companies, 70% of the IBEX 35, 30% of the GDP, so important representation. And representing social commitment of companies and focus on a strategy with a pragmatic approach and giving importance to innovation. What do? We help and go with companies in their transformation journey, trying to help them to increase a positive social impact. And during these 11 years, we have seen important changes. First, we have seen that companies really want to assume this role. They do want. Second, we have seen a move from a journey from a philanthropic approach to a much more share value, which was at the beginning of CERES, the original approach. We said, yeah, that's what we believe in. Third, that their leaders have acted as starters of the transformation. I would say leadership matters, because otherwise things don't happen in the companies. Four, a big, and I'm talking about Spain, big involvement of employees. Maybe we are not so participative outside the companies. However, voluntaries are important, and involvement of those employees is important. And five, enterprise look for sharing knowledge, sharing best practices, learning from each other, developing tools, measuring, giving importance to KPIs, etc., which is part of the role of CERES. That's what we do. So that's what I would say about these years and CERES. But you are older, not you, but your organization is older than ours, right? And since 1999, I believe, when Paul Newman was one of the founders, right? That's amazing, and it's an important thing. But you've been so close to companies and to their role that I would love to hear from you what the evolution has been and what has changed in the American field regarding companies and their approach.
Sure. Thank you, Paco. Yes, CECP was founded a little over 20 years ago. And we haven't been as fast at this as you have been in Spain. In fact, we've learned a lot through the global exchange from Spain and our other 18 partners around the globe to really help us to share these views. When CECP started, those letters stood for the Committee Encouraging Corporate Philanthropy, as you said, Paco. That was the focus back there in last century. When I took over about 7 or 8 years ago, having been a public company CEO previously, like yourself, we just went to the letters. That way we could save on our business cards. We just said CECP. And to recognize the changes we've gone through to purpose-driven leadership, we evolved and changed our name a couple of years ago to keep the letters, save the money on the business cards, and that stands for Chief Executives for Corporate Purpose. So we are very much aligned on those goals, and we have really seen an evolution during those during that time frame. And we believe that's really come because companies, through that innovation you've talked about, emerging and established companies have become bigger. 69 of the 100 largest economic units in the world are companies, not countries. Think about that. Big. And companies like Walmart are bigger than most of the countries in the world. And in a world where we see, I think, too much partisan political populism in the political realm, business really has that very important role to step up, to really talk about, to evolve, to improve our institutions, and really drive sustainable success over time, not just from election to election or so. So we really have seen with that growth in companies, the expectations have risen. So people, citizens around the world, 4 out of 5, the number is even a little higher in Spain, according to the Edelman Trust Barometer, believe that a company can make a profit, but also do good in the world. And we think that combination is so powerful. In fact, our belief in the future is you will make money because you do good in the world. And that becomes an important factor. And of course, the research that we both see, we talk about, is so important. And it reinforces that view that companies that are run broadly for its stakeholders and for the longer term, its stakeholders and sustainably outperform over time. They actually do better financially. And of course, efforts like CSR, letters that didn't exist, or ESG, are now part of the lexicon in business. So we think that the move that you're seeing in Spain, we're seeing in the US and around the globe is here. It is here to stay. And particularly during the COVID challenges that we face, the global pandemic, it is just so important that companies can really step up and are stepping up to truly build a better world through business.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, big responsibility for companies because their impact is immense. In other words, civil society is key in determining our future, the future of all of us. No, and I completely and we completely agree with you with this approach, and that's why I mentioned this share value approach. You can do. You can impact positively the society and at the same time create a return value for your company. And in that way, you create a virtuous cycle reinforcing itself for the good of everybody. So, but you mentioned what we are living these days, this COVID-19 thing, which is a big shake, in maybe even a big reset for many things. No, and we have seen what companies have done here, and the reaction have been extremely positive, keeping business on, taking care of people, reacting and contributing positively to society, etc. We try to be very active and help companies to do so. There are 2 initiatives I would like to mention and share with you. The first one is something we call Seres Responsable, Seres Responsible. It's a 360 initiative. It encourages cooperation to solve specific needs, right? So very pragmatic. And there are more than 400 projects combining the participation of some companies, NGOs, entrepreneurs, leaders, maybe some institutions, etc. But again, solutions, that's common sense. Practical solutions for real problems that you have, right? So more than 400 projects. It has been very successful. We took also another angle, which is we wanted to have the point of view of the main leaders in Spain. entrepreneurial leaders, right? And so we started weekly brief dialogues with the top managers of the main companies. And so far we have had 30 something, and we keep going on, right? And the focus was COVID crisis, looking ahead. What is important here is the future. So the past is just to learn from. And so learnings from the past, how to build, and considerations about leadership. And you know what? All of them, without any exceptions, mention the importance of having purpose in the reconstruction, to do it around values. All of them emphasize the importance of soft skills. I said before, leadership matters. This is true. And leadership matters because people matters. And if you don't lead, then you don't take care of people, you don't help, etc. And yeah, people matters. I have to say that within those 400 projects, maybe 60%, or I don't know, a very high percentage is dedicated to help vulnerable people in a way or another. So that sensitivity, and that's the role in crisis of companies. I wonder what have you done, probably similar things. And my question to you is, learnings you can share with us, good practices, something you want to mention specifically during this crisis that unfortunately has not ended?
Sure. Yeah, the similarities again between what the good work that you're doing at CECP and what we're also looking to do in the US are remarkable. And it's really great that we can learn from each other as part of the global exchange. We are very firmly, it's our last name is purpose. We just published a paper last week on the notion of the return on purpose, and the companies that really have embraced purpose have outperformed in the marketplace. They've outperformed with their customers, with their employees, with their investors, and have done so during the COVID crisis as well. So we think that purpose focus is just so important, and moving it just from words to action and having specific programs. Similar to you, we really look at 4 areas that we can help our companies really progress against this notion of stakeholder capitalism. One of those is providing the research, like our paper on return on purpose. So having the research out there that shows how companies, with the data, with the metrics, how companies are making a difference in the world and how they can learn from each other. The second real important area we find are those case studies, those examples that we can provide to companies. Some want to see the numbers, some want to see the qualitative action about how companies are working and partnering together to truly make a difference in the world. And with those two, creating frameworks so that are tools, if you will, solutions so that companies can work together. Leadership, like you say, is critical. You know, we have well over 200 plus CEOs that are part of CECP. They represent about 7 trillion US, 6 trillion euros in annual turnover. So these are big enterprises. I think we'd be the 3rd largest economic unit in the world, other than the United States and China. Now, obviously, not all our companies work together all the time, but I can assure you, neither do the United States at this juncture. So some work to do on those areas, but leadership's really important. And like yourselves, we've now gone to regular conversations with our CEOs, bring them together around topics like social justice. Next week, we'll have the CEO of Bank of America talking about ESG. We have another in December coming up with another of our CEOs. She'll be speaking from Guardian Life, a member of our board. We'll be speaking about the future of work. So we think that engagement with CEOs is so critical because some of the work we're doing during the global pandemic is happening in real time. We don't have the history of what do you do in this. So we need to share and learn in real time with each of those efforts. And the following, these all connect together, are providing platforms like this for companies to have those discussions, to share those best practices and leadership pieces so that they can really make progress against the stakeholders they've had. And we've seen companies step up, whether it's with employees or their customer base, and particularly with their communities, as you mentioned, over the last number of months, and companies that have invested substantially money, people, and time. One that's very important to us in the US at this juncture is social justice. It's a long-standing American issue, dates back centuries. And one of the groups we're really proud to partner with is CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion. We're a pledge signee. We have over 1,000 organizations in the US that are lined up so that, again, we can share those best practices about how do we build a more inclusive, more diverse, and a higher performing workforces. And so those types of collaborative efforts we think are just really critical here as we move forward, and the openness of companies to engage in those continues to increase.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Daryl. Yeah, it is so important, this learning aspect, right? If I'm being very, very honest, I think that when we started with CERES, the first aim was to learn from each other, right? And we said, we are creating a campus, some kind of whatever, university or whatever, just for companies to learn in a matter which is unexplored, and there are no many people to learn from. And now, I mean, what is important in life is the future. Always what you have to do is more important than what you have done, right? So it's time to think ahead in big terms, with a big picture as a society, if you want, in a microcosmos, as every business, and so on. And there are a few things that are very clear and come from those conversations with leaders, like the importance of keeping our people safe, maintaining our people safe, building or rebuilding reliable operations, rebuilding it, understanding the new environment, which is very different, and all of those things supporting our communities. No? So it's time for a strategy. And again, I'm re-emphasizing that those leaders said, yeah, a strategy has to be built based on values and purpose. And something that is important, if you talk about the strategy, the first step is clearly to understand the environment in a broad sense. What is happening in the world, what is affecting you, that means what is affecting the global world. And that means to talk to and listen to as many stakeholders that you can identify. The times for identifying very few stakeholders, just investors or shareholders, etc., is completely out, because otherwise your strategy will be incomplete and it will be a failure. Part of it is investors. That's by the way, it's important for us, because I think that we came a bit later than you to give importance to the investors community in that sense. Maybe the European side of the world is a bit arrive a bit later than the States. For us, it's important, for CERES, it is important to bring value to the table in rebuilding this future. So we will continue doing what we are doing, trying to do it better every day. We will continue with the type of things that I mentioned, like these dialogues with CEOs, with the main leaders, and so on. We also have some CEO challenges, which is special panels on specific topics and these type of things. It is so important to have the top managers involved, because otherwise it will never be this social impact reflected and considered in the strategy. If you want it within the strategy, you need the involvement of the top guys. We will continue developing management tools for impact and for measuring. And something very important we have created is a new tool to help companies to develop their strategy based on purpose, to find the purpose and develop a strategy around. We call it RSC3. So all of these things mean that we will continue working on this, looking to be helpful to companies to build the future we want to build. And but we are talking about this crisis that we are living. How do you see the world, or how should we look at the new world after COVID? And how will be this transformation be for company, society, and, as we always say, no leaving anyone behind?
Thank you, Paco. And I think these are critical issues. Really, three trends that we see that are going to be critical as we move forward, and that we're already taking steps on, some of which we've touched on here. I think you'll hear more about those from Rebecca Henderson here in a few minutes, who's one of our heroes at CECP, sheroes, as they say. First is this notion of purpose-driven leadership. We've talked about that a lot, but it's moving from being something nice to do to something necessary. And that's the expectation of today's and the future's leaders. They are going to be purpose-driven. That's the people, companies, the best people are going to want to work for, buy from, engage with, and collaborate with. So we think that's really key and will continue to be so. Second is collaborative efforts. And we touched on a few of those, like CEO Action, many of which you have 400 coming together, where companies can work together to solve pre-competitive issues. We think that is essential. Many of those may happen with government officials, they may happen with other nonprofits, but getting groups together to solve big issues, Very few companies can solve the challenges we're seeing today on their own. The third area, and you hit it very clear, and we believe is really essential, is the notion of rewiring our capital markets. Our capital markets, particularly in the US, are simply too short-term oriented. There's a value to trading. It keeps liquidity in the market. But this is about investing. And who do you want to invest in for the long haul? So that's why CECP, CEO Investor Forum, is so critical, which we've talked about and delighted to talk more on as we move forward. But we think those issues are just going to be so critical for us as we go forward, and having specific tools, specific solutions that can really help our companies build a better world through business.
Thank you very much, Daryl. This is about cooperation. This is about social commitment. This is about leadership. This is about the connection between social progress and economic progress. And that's the goal for all of us. We will continue working on, we will continue cooperating. Thanks for being today with us. And I pass the floor to Antonella to continue with the agenda. Thanks again, Daryl. A real pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Antonella. Thank you all.